Timmy and Sarah stood before the rusted gates. The abandoned Jenkins mansion loomed, daring, forbidden, a rite of passage for adventurous kids.
Last one, there's a rotten egg.
Timmy yelled, already sprinting toward the creaking iron gates. Sarah, braver than she felt, trailed behind. She caught up, slipping through a gap in the gates just as Timmy slammed against the front door. It groaned open, dust swirled, the air inside felt heavy. Still, Sarah shivered. This place had a bad vibe, like a coffin left in the sun too long. Timmy, however, seemed oblivious. He was already racing up the main staircase, sneakers thumping on the wooden steps like a drumbeat.
Come on, slowpoke.
Timmy's voice echoed from the shadows above. They explored dusty rooms, each one filled with decaying grandeur. Faded portraits stared down from the walls. Finally, they found it. A room hidden at the end of a narrow hallway. Mr. Jenkins's art studio. The air here crackled with a strange energy. It made the hairs on Sarah's arms stand on end. An easel stood in the center of the room, bathed in a beam of dusty sunlight. On it, a half-finished portrait of a man, his eyes seeming to follow them.
Whoa,
Timmy breathed, stepping closer. As he moved, a figure stepped out from the shadows. He was tall and gaunt, with eyes that burned like hot coals. His voice, when he spoke, was a dry rasp.
Who dares disturb the studio of Mr. Jenkins?
Sarah knew with a certainty that chilled her to the bone that this was no ordinary man. This was the ghost of Mr. Jenkins himself.
We didn't mean any harm, Mr. Jenkins, sir.
Sarah stammered, taking a step back. Timmy, never one to be intimidated, stood his ground.
we just wanted to see your paintings.
Mr. Jenkins's ghostly form flickered, his eyes burning brighter.
My paintings are not to be gawked at by trespassers.
He raised a hand, and the unfinished portrait on the easel began to glow. Panic seized Sarah. She tried to pull Timmy back, but it was too late. The glowing canvas pulsed, a vortex of colors. Timmy was sucked in, his startled cry echoing after him.
Timmy!
Sarah lunged for the canvas, but an invisible force field threw her back. Mr. Jenkins's chilling laughter filled the room.
He will join my collection, forever trapped within the prison of my art.
The world dissolved into a swirl of colors and shapes.
Sarah found herself pulled into the painting. When things solidified, she was standing in a dark and twisted version of the studio, the air thick with despair. Timmy stood nearby, his face a mask of terror. He was trapped, unable to move, just like the other figures Sarah now saw around them. People from different times, all frozen in eternal torment within the painting.
We're trapped!
Timmy's voice was muffled, as if from behind a thick wall. Sarah refused to give in to despair. She had to get them out. But how? She touched the canvas of the world around them. It felt cold, unyielding. Then she noticed it, a faint pulsing, a rhythm in the brushstrokes. Could the key to their escape lie within the very paint itself? Sarah examined the brushstrokes, her fingers tracing the patterns. There was a rhythm, a flow, and she realized it mirrored the beating of a heart. This wasn't just paint. It was alive with Mr. Jenkins's own essence.
She closed her eyes, remembering the way Timmy's heart thumped against his ribs when they were scared. She pictured it, that steady beat, and began to tap on the canvas. Slow at first, then faster, mimicking the rhythm of life.
The painting rippled, the figures around them flickered, their forms becoming less solid. Mr. Jenkins's ghostly laughter turned into a roar of anger.
You cannot escape me,
he bellowed, his form swirling like a storm cloud. But it was too late. The painting was unraveling, the world dissolving around them. Sarah and Timmy tumbled back into the real world, landing on the dusty floor of Mr. Jenkins's studio. The painting on the easel hung askew, the colors dull and lifeless. Mr. Jenkins's form flickered violently, his scream echoing through the room as he faded from view. Then, silence. The only sound was their own ragged breathing, but the silence didn't bring comfort. It thrummed with a lingering menace. Suddenly the floor beneath them groaned. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The whole house seemed to sigh, walls groaning as if about to collapse.
Run!
Timmy yelled, scrambling to his feet. They sprinted out of the studio, through the decaying mansion and into the fresh air outside, just as the old house shuddered and crumbled in on itself. A cloud of dust rose into the air, obscuring the setting sun. From the ruins, a voice, faint but full of rage, echoed across the twilight.
This is not over. I will have my revenge.
Sarah and Timmy, hand in hand, didn't need to look back to know that Mr. Jenkins, though gone, was far from finished with them. They had escaped his prison, but they had also unleashed a fury that would haunt them forever.